In this video, I'm going to share with you a specific story that I heard Warren Buffett tell that will enable you to close more sales by leveraging the power of urgency. Hi, I'm Devin Rodriguez, founder of Storypreneur, and we help business owners leverage the power of storytelling to close more sales. Now, what I want to share with you today is a specific story that I heard Warren Buffett tell. And when I heard Warren Buffett tell this story on an interview, it automatically clicked for me that this was a story that you and I can use in our challenges, in our masterclasses, in our webinars to close more sales. So without further ado, let's jump right into the story. So I heard Warren Buffett giving the interview, and he shared a story that went something like this. When Warren Buffett was about 28 years old in 1958, he was just getting into the scene as becoming a really big and successful investor. Now, his friend at the time knew that Warren was a really incredible investor. So what he did for Warren was he tried to get people to come to dinner, get to know Warren, and then invest with Warren. So his friend had put together a dinner with Warren himself and 12 doctors. Now, these doctors were pretty well off, so they had some good money, and they were looking to invest their money so that it was working for them instead of just sitting in a bank. So long story short, they went to dinner with Warren. They sat down, they broke bread together, they got to know each other, and then at the end of the dinner, they all sat there and Warren asked them this question. He said, "Gentlemen, who would like to invest with me?" Now, his friend had told all of the 12 doctors before the dinner even started. He said, "Gentlemen, if you have even half of a brain cell, you will give Warren your money," because his friend knew how brilliant Warren was. Now, at the end of the dinner, when it was time to put up or shut up, or rather to invest, Warren said, "Who's ready to invest?" 11 of the doctors gave Warren $10,000, and that's in 1958. That's a pretty good chunk of money. But there was one doctor who did not give Warren his money. You see, here's the thing. Warren was an incredible investor, and 11 out of those 12 men understood that there was a risk involved in giving Warren 10,000 of his dollars because Warren could not guarantee anything. It's the stock market. But they knew that in order to potentially make money, they first had to risk money. They knew that in order to gain, they had to put something in the game. But there was one person, one doctor, who asked a question. He said, "Well, what happens to my money if I lose it? Well, what if I don't get it back? What if it just crumbles? That's $10,000. What am I going to do?" 11 of the men made their decision because they knew what was possible for their future. But there was one man who allowed fear to stop him from making a decision that could have changed the trajectory of his family's life forever. And he ended up not investing with Warren Buffett. Now, 11 of those men went on to become extremely wealthy, but that one man had that regret for the rest of his life of only if I would have acted. If only I didn't allow fear to drive me away from making a decision that could have changed my life. And he was filled with regret. Now, why is this story so relevant for you? Because here's the thing. Whenever you're presenting an opportunity, similar to how that one doctor was terrified, a lot of the people that you're speaking to, especially if you sell high-ticket stuff, they're going to be freaking out internally just like that guy was. So what you do is you share that story that I just said, and you literally steal exactly how I said it. Now, let me draw your attention to a couple of things that I did in specific. I said something like this. 11 of the men had saw the opportunity and knew that risk was not something that was bad, but something that was required to go to the next level in their life. Now let's do a timeout. Why did I mention that in specific? I said 11 of the 12 men. Now here's the thing. When your audience hears you say 11 of the 12 men, they don't even calculate the numbers 11 out of 12. All they know was that the majority of the people in that story understood that risk was a good thing. Here's what's interesting. Human psychology states that the safest place in a crowd is always in the middle, meaning that people always want to do what other people are doing because it makes them feel safe. So when you mention 11 out of 12 know that risk is a good thing, now subconsciously the audience that you're presenting to is going to begin to shift their belief to believing that risk is a good thing. Why? Because if 11 out of 12 people did it, that must mean that taking risk is a good thing. Now, here's also what I did. I said that they knew that in order to go to the next level of their life, they had to take a risk. Now, why is that important? Because what I'm doing is when I'm sharing that piece of the story, I'm actually giving instructions subconsciously to the minds of the audience, and I'm training them and conditioning them to believe that in order to get to the next level, they must take risks. But then I go ahead and I switch and turn around to the guy that did not take action. And listen to some of the words that I say. But then there was one. There was just one gentleman, one doctor that chose not to invest. And he asked himself questions, and he asked Warren questions like, what if it doesn't work? What if I don't make the money? Well, what if this just doesn't work for me? Time out. Why am I asking those questions? I am asking those questions in that specific way because those are the same exact questions that are going to arise for my audience internally when I present them with an opportunity to invest in my coaching program or my services. So instead of waiting for that time to come, I nip it in the butt early and I say, wait. Instead of waiting for that to come up later for them, why don't I just give them that objection right now and train them how to respond? So I gave them the statements of, well, it's a lot of money. That's something that my audience is going to think. Well, I don't think now's the time. That's something that my audience is going to think. Well, I don't know if this will work for me. That's something that my audience is going to think. So if you can tell, what I'm doing is I'm reflecting back to the audience their internal conversation before they even ever have it. Now, how do I do this? Well, because I know my audience better than they know themselves. That is what we call the process of audience intelligence, which is the subject for another video. So I continue on by saying, he said it was too much money. What if it doesn't work out for me? And he chose not to invest. I tell them very specifically the decision that he made. And now I'm going to transfer over to the result of the decision. And he lived in regret for the rest of his life. And he said to himself, if only I had invested, if only I took the risk. What am I doing? I'm giving them another future conversation that they could potentially be having with themselves. But what I'm doing now is I just shared with them that the person chose not to invest. Now think about it. Choosing not to invest with Warren Buffett in 1958, today that's a very silly decision. So anybody that is listening in the audience, they are assuming and they are labeling that decision of not investing as that was a stupid decision. So think about the sequence of events. I reflected to them their internal conversation of, it's too much money, I don't know what to do. And then he chose not to invest. And now he's saying to himself how much he regrets this decision. So what did I just do? I just trained the audience's mind to follow this sequence. When something is offered to me, if I have the internal conversation of it's not enough money or now's not the right time, and I make the decision not to do it, then eventually I will have the conversation with myself of, if only I did invest. I'm so silly I did not take the risk. I wish I would have taken the risk. So what I'm doing is I'm moving the audience in the direction that I want them to, which is to have the internal conversation, which is the opposite. It's the internal conversation of the 11 men who were presented with the opportunity. They potentially had the same objections of, ooh, that's a lot of money. I don't know if now's the right time, but they took the risk. They made the decision to invest. And now they have this great internal conversation of, this was a great decision. I'm so happy I made that choice. So how is this applicable for you and your business? When you offer your high ticket service, people are automatically, because of their subconscious programming, going to have the inner conversation of, this is too much money. Now's not the time. I got to figure things out. I got to go buy a camel in Russia. Some crazy stuff is going to go on inside of people. But through this story right here, we have the ability to train people how to respond in that situation because we meet people where they're at. We give them the answer to their objection before they ever can give themselves the answer. So we tell them in the story, the gentleman thought, this is so much money. All 12 of them thought that. 11 of them said, despite it being a lot of money, I see the opportunity. Now, if we want to take it up a level, we can say, how many of you in the audience know that in order to make money, sometimes you have to risk money? Can I see a show of hands? So now we're getting the audience engaged. And if we want to take it up one more level, we can say this. Now, for those of you that just raised your hand and said that you are willing to take risks, here's what I want you to do. One by one, I want you to raise up out of your seats and say these words. I am a risk taker. Now, what are we doing when we do that? And this is kind of getting out into the weeds, is we're getting people to commit to an identity. So now when we give them our offer, they're going to want to remain consistent with their commitment. That comes from Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, a great book that you absolutely got to pick up. But anyways, so when people hear your offer, they're going to have the internal conversation, they're going to make a decision, and it's going to lead to a future internal conversation. So what you want to begin to do is provide people with stories like this that reflect back to them the internal conversations that are to come, so that when those conversations come, we train them to make the decision that we know is best for them. So remember, we don't do any of this to cheat, manipulate, lie, or steal. We do all of this to genuinely help and change people's lives. So use the Warren Buffett close in order to close more sales. And remember, it's all about the inner dialogue and training people's minds and conditioning people's minds to making the best decision for them.